Hey guys, it's CS Joseph doing another Patreon lecture for season 14. This is episode 3, ENTJs and INTPs, the third golden pair. And let's talk about the golden pair, the ENTJ plus the INTP. Now, we're getting into ENTJ NTP land, which is definitely one of my favorite lands when it comes to the golden pairs or relationships in general. So I'm very excited to actually have the opportunity to talk about this particular golden pair. And yes, it is the third one, and the fourth one will obviously be ENFJ INFP, which is around the corner. So yes, yay, INFPs, you don't actually have to wait to the very freaking end of the lecture series in order to get anything that you're looking for. So yeah, that's actually episode 4, but right now we're on episode 3, so let's get down to business. So remember that relationships are basically like the golden pairs themselves follow two distinct patterns. You have to have ideal sexual compatibility and ideal emotional compatibility molded together to create perfect yin and yang equilibrium. And it's the same yin and yang equilibrium that's defined within season 4 on the YouTube channel. We talk about human attraction dynamics, how love and respect is the center of the relationship, how focusing on building up man's nobility, which turns into respectability, or building up women's beauty, etc. And how each of those pieces are fed between like humility versus esteem. All of those approaches are very important and central to relationships. So like when you're watching the golden pairs, if you haven't actually taken the chance or the time to to watch season 4 on the YouTube channel, what are you doing? You should probably go figure that out. Like seriously, go figure it out, because it's very, very useful in understanding just kind of the relationship dynamics between any of these types, especially these two types, because of how different they are. And this because, this kind of relationship, it's not common. It's not really very common at all. I mean, let's be honest, okay? ENTJs, like, for example, ENTJ women, do you think they're even going to be remotely interested in the average INTP guy? No. Of course, then again, most women aren't exactly interested in the average NTP guy anyway, because typically NTP guys are fat and lazy. They sit around playing video games all day. Mother's basement failure to launch syndrome, have literally no drive, and just kind of consistently are disappointments in almost everywhere of life. Not only that, they do not understand what it is to be like an alpha male. They're super hardcore beta, if not actually omega, within their like mental structure of approaching relationships. Not good, right? Like not remotely good. Not something I'd recommend if we're gonna talk to CS Joker about that. So, I mean, he'll be pulling out knives very soon, I'm sure. But let's not go there. Anyway, so ENTJ women, very hard for them to be attracted to INTP men or NTP men in general. It is a consistent struggle. Not only that, the reverse is also true. It's also difficult for NTP men to be attracted to NTJ or ENTJ women specifically. The reason is because they often complain that they're too bossy, they're too emasculating, they're consistently controlling, and they just have this huge laundry list as as to the problems associated with the particular woman at the time, which quite frankly directly translates into their lack of manhood. That's literally it. Their inability to esteem themselves, thereby inhibiting their ability to develop nobility, thus respectability, which makes them not respectable within the relationship itself. As a result, these women have no desire to actually get involved with INTPs to begin with. And who can blame them? Because for some reason, INTPs, for the most part, statistically speaking, end up developing from, the shadow archetype of king. If you don't know what king is, you should probably watch season 13 on the YouTube channel and be responsible about that. King, warrior, magician, lover, and then also queen, mother, matron, lover. Very important archetypes for the mature masculine, mature feminine. Check that out. But be that as it may, regarding these particular lectures, understand that the shadow type of the king that INTP men especially get sucked into is known as the high chair tyrant, which is actually kind of typical of a lot of NTPs. The high chair tyrant. It's a level of I don't know, it's almost like depravity, the same kind of depravity that ENFPs get when they're super into their vice. But from an NTP point of view, especially INTPs, they can get so focused on their own experience that they do not really show much interest in the experience of others. And that can cause a problem. Why? Because they have SE trickster. They're completely unaware of other people's experiences. Heck, I have it even worse. I'm an ENTP and I have SE demon. Do you think I really care about what other people are experiencing at any time? No, because I only have enough mental room for my own experience. But then again, that causes me to come off as narcissistic and selfish, right? Well, INTPs have the same problem. That's another criticism of ENTJ women towards INTP men. Now, let's flip the tables, okay? What happens when it's INTP women versus ENTJ men? Oh, I know. ENTJ men consistently complain about how INTP women do not take care of themselves, completely lack in beauty whatsoever, are overly critical for not knowing much of anything to begin with, are either too caring or caring to the wrong people, spending energy on things that they shouldn't be spending on, and being unable to prioritize their life accordingly, such that the ENTJ feels like, okay, well, that person's obviously not going to be able to prioritize me, and as a result of that, I don't feel like they're being loyal to me, so I'm just going to go elsewhere, which could lead to cheating and, very negative relationships. You know what I'm saying? Not exactly ideal, right? Not something I'd recommend. So don't do that, right? So how do you get around that? What do you do? What are the issues? Really, guys, it really comes down to continuous improvement. Like if I could literally just turn on a nice little Kaizen infomercial, now would be the time. Click. Oh, no, I don't actually have one. But the point is continuous improvement, consistent, continuous improvement, and growth, okay? ENTJ men consistently complain about INTP women having a lack of drive, an entire lack of drive. They just want to sit around and do nothing, sit around playing video games all day, for example, not taking care of the home, right? It's not like ENTJ men in general view INTP women as not wife material. That's the problem. That's literally it. That's literally it. In as much as ENTJ women view INTP men as not husband material. Why is that? Well, feminism. Feminism is the problem. And quite frankly, feminism has destroyed relationships for these two types. In fact, the feminism and feminist society has actually inhibited the chances of this golden pair actually being successful, even though it is the golden pair, even though it is highest compatibility, even though it literally can move mountains and change the world because of how powerful it is and how much synergy it has. But the point is, they're not able to pull that off. Why? Because of human nurture. Because the human nurture from feminist society and modern society is consistently screwing over these types. Doesn't matter which gender it is. Female ENTJs have to deal with the fact that they're coming off too emasculating, and then as a result, they're total turnoffs to INTP men, who usually are either too weak, too inept, lacking drive, or really, really overemphasizing being a beta and necessarily, going from the alpha model, right? Of course, most alpha males are actually just boys who can shave, who are all about machismo instead of actually being effective at doing something, which is very frustrating. Yeah, I remember being that way one time, in my 20s. Thank God I'm not that person anymore. Instead, I'm having to completely rediscover who I am, being that, my current state of life as it is right now, for the sake, not just, for myself, but also for this audience. Consistent, continuous improvement all the time. Do you know how many books I've read in the last couple weeks? I can't believe how many books I've read. It's unbelievable. I think I'm at 12 books right now. Of course, I had a lot of extra time in the hospital, but you see what I'm saying? You never miss a beat. If you are driving, if you are grocery shopping, if you are if you're doing the dishes, I'm literally about to do the dishes after this lecture. The point is, there is no excuse. You should have your nose in a book, or at least in an Audible account, because I just got additional credits from Audible, and I'm definitely going to be spending them on a bunch of books that I want to get. It's so easy. There is almost no excuse. Most audiobooks, they're 4 or 6 hours long. There's no reason you can't read a book a day, people. Grow up. You want to have good relationships? Grow up. ENTJ men constantly complaining about INTP women, or INTP women complaining about ENTJ men. Again, too controlling. They care about their business more than they care about me. They're not making me a priority, right? Why should I even bother? Ooh, why bother syndrome. Oh yes, the NTP avoidant way of doing things is why bother syndrome. That's really healthy. You know, sometimes though as an NTP, I can admit that I can't help it. I do get why bother syndrome a lot. And, you know, it's just like, it kind of almost makes me come off as like this very, I don't know, high maintenance person, you know, where it's like, wow, no one's like going out of their way to like check up on me here. So fine, I'm just going to handle everything myself. Screw y'all. Why do I care? You know what I'm saying? Like, but then again, that too could also be selfish because I could at least take the time to initiate, especially since I'm an ENTP and the burden of initiation is actually more on me, versus with the INTP, that is not the case. But yeah, I mean, the ENTJ would criticize the INTP. Where's your drive? You know, or the INTP would criticize the ENTJ. You have too much drive, or why won't you spend some of that drive on me, right? And it just becomes a complete conflict, right? These are the problems with this particular golden pair. This golden pair, while it is super mega powerful and amazing, it's just not as feasible in our culture, in our feminist society, because of the gender expectations that's put upon NTPs and NTJs. And given that from society's point of view, an ENTJ type is actually technically more masculine and an NTP type is technically more feminine. These are huge issues because it's already teaching the men who are NTPs that they can't actually be an actual mature masculine human being, but instead they get this beta or omega syndrome, this failure to launch syndrome, where they expect their women to do everything for them, basically, because they just take it way too far, because society has not given them the rite of passage or the male figures in their life to actually determine that. That's a consistent issue. Or with ENTJ women coming off as too emasculating, they're being like these major CEOs with the direction that they're going, or building businesses, building rapport, leveraging their reputation or the reputation of others, real estate investing, you know, all sorts of different things. But apparently like a woman can't be doing that, right? But that's not how I see it. Of course, you know, most NTPs don't actually see it that way. Most NTPs actually really appreciate it when women are taking, you know, the initiative in that area of life. With some of those bigger things, you know, while we're given the opportunity to actually look at some of the little things, because we have no concept of the little things because our low extroverted sensing is a problem, right? So anyway, I wanted to provide a nice little foundation as to why this golden pair is it's so rare. It's because societal problems. It's because the human nurture consistently gets in the way of this golden pair from coming together. But I'll show you in a minute why it's absolutely essential that this golden pair be preserved as much as possible and supported as much as possible, especially by society, so that amazing change can occur, right? It goes even further than that. If you noticed, I think it's season 12, I talk about social compatibility, and I think it's season 12, episode 3. Or episode 4, 3 or 4. I'm talking about what types are socially compatible with ENTJs. You could see in that lecture episode where I talk about how ENTJs end up marrying ISFJs. The reason why they end up marrying ISFJs instead of getting with NTPs is because of what I've just said. Human nurture, as a result of being in a feminist society, destroying gender roles or disparaging or distorting gender roles in such a way where people are already pre-programmed to not be in the ideal relationship for themselves. This is a consistent issue. We just did 2 lectures involving sensors for golden pairs. Well, guess what? They get a free pass. But when it comes to the intuitives, it's completely different. A whole new set of rules. You see? Because from an intuitive point of view, especially when it comes to NTJ, NTP relationships, the rules don't mean anything. Because the gender roles and the rules and how the relationship goes itself is actually defined by the pragmatic personal boundaries of the individuals involved and nobody else. What that means is that in this game of NTJ, NTP relationships, anything goes. Literally anything goes. Anything can be defined. Anything, as long as both parties agree to it, is negotiated and adhered to. That's how it works. You will not find such freedom in other relationships. And that is one thing that is unique, very unique to the NT temperament, because guess what? The golden pairs for NTs exist inside that one temperament. In the same way it does for the idealists with the NFs. The problem is with the NFs is that they're so interdependent. They are so interdependent. Because of the interdependence, they do not know. They're constantly going and trying to do the right thing. And because they're trying to do the right thing, it gets in the way. It gets in the way of everything because there's all these subjective rules that they have to follow, right? Whereas there's no such thing as subjective rules in pragmatic NT relationships. Everything has to be defined by those involved, right? The problem is that feminist society does not allow ENTJs and INTPs to know this. It's really bad for ENTPs and INTJs too, don't worry. But it's way bad for these two. Really bad. It's like really far in the extremes. Really far. I'll show you why in a second. Let's talk about how the compatibility actually works. Don't forget cognitive synchronicity theory. I think that's like season 5 on the YouTube channel. Watch it so you can understand. How does cognitive synchronicity theory actually work? So we got sexual compatibility and we have emotional compatibility. So we're just going to talk about ideal compatibility. We're not going to go through the whole setup as to what type is with who. But the whole point of the golden pair is so you have ideal sexual compatibility combined with ideal emotional compatibility. If you don't do that, you'll end up in situations where you have an INTP in a relationship with an ENFJ. They have super high sexual compatibility, but absolutely zero emotional compatibility. What does that do? That basically means every single conflict in their relationship is solved with sex. That's it. That's it. That's all it's solved by. What about the emotional things? Their emotional needs are not being met, which is only going to cause the INTP to become even more avoidant and then have why bother syndrome all the time, which is then going to cause the ENFJ to feel undervalued, which is going to make it more uncomfortable for the INTP and eventually cause the INTP to become disloyal. Bad. That's not what we want. So we're not doing that, right? This is why it is so crucial to make sure you have both of these compatibilities lined up in order to achieve the golden pair, which is obviously being with your shadow. You want to be in a relationship with your shadow so you have all of your mental bases covered. Why is that? Well, let's take a look. So, we have ENTJ and INTP. TE hero, TE is rationale, NI parent is willpower, SE child is physics or living in the moment basically. It's all about being in the moment. It's all about what other people are doing, living, in the now. It's also short-term memory, right? New information comes in, old information goes out. And is it written to that really small hard drive for the ENTJ, which happens to be SI trickster? No, they're super forgetful. Not going to work. So be aware of that. Introverted feeling inferior, this is their sense of morals. TI nemesis is logic, right? We have extrovert intuition critic, which is metaphysics. And then we have SI trickster, we just talked about, which is their long-term memory, their sense of the past, basically. And then we have FE demon, extroverted feeling demon, also known as ethics, right? These are the cognitive functions. But guess what? They match up completely fine with the INTP. Because guess what? TE hero is trying to consume TI hero because the extroverted functions, guys, is trying to find the introverted function because the TE hero is always all about what everyone else thinks, right? So the ENTJ needs to go to that INTP, be like, hey, what do you think about this? Why? Because the ENTJ worries about their ideas. They're constantly worried about their own ideas and worried that their ideas may actually be inaccurate. So they have to go to the INTP, be like, hey, what do you think about this idea that I have, etc., right? That's what they're supposed to do. That's how it works. That's really literally how it works. So, what do? All of the bases are covered. Sexual compatibility. Sexual compatibility is based on perception functions, right? That's where sex is. That's where it all is. It's all based on perception, right? Whereas emotional compatibility is all based on decision making. That's why you need compatible decision making functions to have a good emotional relationship. This is why also emotional affairs exist, because you can have an emotional affair, like for example, let's see here. An INTJ could have an emotional affair with an ESTP, for example, and they have super good emotional compatibility with the ESTP, but they have zero sexual chemistry whatsoever. As a result, that relationship is going to fall apart. See what I'm saying? Not going to work. Or vice versa, quite frankly. So, because like SI users are typically on bottom and SE users are typically on top, unless you're in a golden pair, because then it's anything goes, right? Then it's anything goes. That's the one thing about the golden pair, is that it's so synergistic. You have such compatibility going right across the board, because you can, quite frankly, just jump from here, jump from here, jump from here, jump from here. Everything's across the board, which means everything is negotiable. Literally everything. You have absolute full freedom in your relationship. And not only that, it's super mega explosive, right? Super explosive. Why? Because the fireworks, boom, boom. And that's fantastic when everything is just so amazing, but it also can have some really, really deep lows as well. But guess what? Then you can get right back on the highs again. And then eventually you both reach equilibrium because you understand each other in ways that you never even considered, right? That's literally what it's all about. That's how it works, okay? So just be aware of this. All of everyone's needs are being met, okay? That's because sexual compatibility and emotional compatibility are maintained. So how does that work? Let's talk about how these two types benefit each other, okay? We already talked about how the ENTJ with extroverted thinking is all about, hey, what do you think? Great, because the ENTJ, the thing about ENTJs, they are really only as intelligent as the people around them until they've gotten enough intelligent people around them and they've read enough books that they finally are able to carry all of that knowledge with them, so they don't necessarily have to rely on other people. INTJs do the same thing, except they do it faster than ENTJs, and it can take ENTJs a little bit longer because they're a little bit slower because they're control types, whereas the INTJ is a movement type. Doesn't matter. They can have all of that stuff handled, no issue, right? So then, so then there's introvert intuition parent. ENTJs, they're all about what they want, very responsible with what they want, and guess what? You have extrovert intuition parent with the INTP. Well, why is that important? Well, because the INTP is constantly looking for the other person to just tell them what they want. Because once the INTP knows what another person wants, they know how to behave. They know what to do. Why is that? Because extroverted intuition is on an axis with introverted sensing. And if I know what you want, then I know what to do. I know what I have to do to give you what you want. And the ENTJ is like, well, I want this from you. And then any parent's like, okay, I know what to do now with my SI child to give you what you want, ENTJ. I think we got this covered, right? Fantastic, right? So that's what happens. Or you could look at it this way, from a TIFE standpoint, hey, what do you think about this? Oh, that's a really good idea. And then, the FI inferior feels good. They don't feel like they're a bad person. They don't feel like they're unworthy anymore about their idea, that their ideas aren't unworthy. And then TE hero is totally cool. Or look at it this way, introverted intuition parent and SE child. The ENTJ is consistently desiring to give their INTP a good experience at all times, especially like, in the bedroom. Yeah, because in the bedroom, the ENTJ takes control. Another reason why INTP males often get derided when it comes to anything sexual, because from everyone's point of view, SI child, guess what, is typically seen as boring in the bedroom, right? But that's not the point. The point is that SI child is just a canvas with which they are to be painted upon by SE child, because SE child exists to be giving a good experience to other people, especially sexually, right? That's how it works, okay? That's why, like, if you have an ENTJ woman with an INTP man, the ENTJ woman, she's going to be on top. She's going to be directing the experience, completely directing the experience. And as long as that INTP is reacting, especially even if you have an ENTJ woman and an INTP male, or vice versa, right? But beyond that, what is the third thing? Oh, maybe it's SI child, like, reacting to SE child. Listen, INTPs, if you're just going to lay there and be, like, really boring, you're not going to get anything out of it. like, she is not going to get anything out of it. Even worse, because if you're not reacting to her in a positive way, it ain't going nowhere. She has to absolutely electrify you. She has to, you have to respond to every single one of her initiations in the bedroom. That's how it works. If you do not do that, her mind, which is built for getting off the fact that you're getting a really good good sensations from her, and she knows that as she paints upon your canvas, etc., as she is conducting the experience, right, based on that, then, and she sees that you are reacting positively to her. Oh, but let's say all of those 4 points, 0 through 3, for example, are absolutely working. Then all of a sudden, she's just going to get closer and closer and closer and closer and closer. It's going to build up in her mind auto-magically until the point where it's like, oh, I'm about to have my mind blown. And because this whole thing of like people taking turns, yeah, that's not going to work. Let me tell you something. Like, from my point of view, especially like with my introverted sensing, after experiencing that for myself with other lovers that I've had in the past, do you think I'm remotely interested in having a sexual relationship with somebody where it's like super one-sided like that? You think extroverted feeling as an NTP, even an INTP would agree with this? Especially, actually, they would even need it even more. That if their lover, for example, doesn't matter if they're a woman or a man, it doesn't matter. Although technically, it's a lot easier orgasm-wise with like an ENTJ man and an INTP woman, because an INTP woman with their SI child is so super mega sensitive. As long as they have, as long as they're super relaxation is just a little bit harder from an ENTJ woman point of view, but doable, and it is all based on the level of comfort of the INTP. Okay, fair enough. Here's the issue. It takes a lot of humility. It takes a lot of communication. It takes a lot of self-discipline. If I know I haven't talked about sex that much with the other golden pairs, but it's especially critical with this one because SI child really, really struggles in the bedroom because they just don't really know how to behave because no one taught them, and then it's all about self-discovery. And like I said, FE users, especially FESI users, which are basically SFJs and NTPs, when it comes to the bedroom experience, it is absolutely important for us. Then guess what? That becomes the new standard for us in the future. And then if we're not able to, communicate that with our partners, and once you've actually mastered the art, it becomes the standard in general, especially for the NTP. Because if it doesn't happen, then they will start questioning their own sexual prowess, and then they will start feeling guilty. Oh, FE guilt. I hate extroverted feeling guilt. It sucks. It really sucks. Don't recommend it. Not something I recommend. FE guilt sucks. And because of that, even though the sexual experience is pretty good for themselves, if they know it was not good for their partner, if it was not good for her, for example, from a male to a female standpoint, it's even more psychologically damaging to the male as a result. And then based on that, it could lead to some serious problems if it's not communicated or adjusted. And that's one of the major struggles INTP men have in the bedroom. So that's why I'm talking about it here, because this is the person, the ENTJ female, that they can reach that level of intimacy with, because that's what it's about, folks. It's about intimacy, right? So that's just, sexually speaking. It's also, there's a lot of non-sexual applications here. If the ENTJ, male or female, knows what they want, it helps the INTP determine their behavior ahead of time, because they're like water, whereas the ENTJ is like fire. They will take the shape, whatever shape they need for the sake of their ENTJ, basically, their ENTJ lover, in order, for the sake of the relationship. That's literally how it works. That's literally how important it is. That's literally what it means, right? And that's, it's a priority. It's a serious priority. Not only that, we already have the fact that the ENTJ can go to the INTP because they're like, wow, the INTP is a super brilliant person. They have TI hero. I can always ask them what they think, and they're always just going to tell me the truth at all times. The truth as they see it, because they're an amazing processor. And if I want to get better information out of them, I just have to provide additional extroverted thinking input to them so that they understand even further, right? And they could process things even further. Oh, it gets even better. Then the INTP, they can even get smarter, not just from the input from the ENTJ, which is like the dopest, but then they can also seek to use their FE inferior to help FI inferior and make FI inferior feel good. And then as a result of helping the FI inferior, the INTP themselves become smarter and more capable, specifically because they've gone out of their way to help their ENTJ. Just through the action of helping, they become even more hyper intelligent. So INTPs, if you're concerned that you're getting stupid, it's probably because you're not actually helping anybody. Maybe you should. That'd be nice. Make that a priority. INTP male and females, I'm talking to both of you. Like, seriously, get that handled. So, be aware of that. This can be an issue. And guess what? They're able to meet their emotional needs because the ENTJ is so afraid of feeling like a bad person, and the INTP is so afraid of making the ENTJ feel like a bad person that they just go out of their way to just realize, you know what? I think you are an amazing person, says the INTP. And the ENTJ is like, you know what? Yeah, you're right. I actually do feel good about myself. But why is that even more significant, huh? Why is that even more important than what is going on? There is more than meets the eye, isn't there not? Yes, there is. Why? INTPs have introvert intuition critic. And introvert intuition critic is like the bane of INTPs. It doesn't matter if they're male or female. It is the bane of INTPs. Why is that? Because ENTJs, one of the reasons why ENTJs are just not really attracted to INTPs is because INTPs, or anyone for that matter, is because INTPs don't do anything. They get stuck in their ruts, and they're constantly stuck in their ruts, sometimes for decades, to the point where they wake up and they're 40 or 50 years old, and it's like, where the hell did my life go? I'm not even married. I don't have this, I don't have that. And then all of a sudden the midlife crisis settles in, and then that leads to, a higher suicide rate. Great. This is why it is so necessary. It is so necessary. I cannot explain how necessary it is for ENTJs to be in relationships with INTPs, because ENTJs, with their FI inferior, they will aspire with their FI inferior such that if they need to be responsibly selfish, they will, because they can tell the INTP and motivate the INTP, because ENTJs are the type that can motivate INTPs better than anybody else. How is that possible? How is it possible that ENTJ can get the INTPs out of their rut and back on the path to freedom, back on the path of continuous improvement, back on the path of self-improvement, back on the path of saving the world, changing the world, sharing their deepest gift with the world if they're like an INTP male, for example, right? According to the Way of the Superior Man, if you haven't read that, what are you doing? Maybe you should figure that out. But the point is, FI inferior is the key. Because how do you motivate an INTP, especially in a relationship? How do you motivate them? Well, first things first, you tell them what you want. It's like, I want you to do this. Okay, then they do that. It's called obligation. It's all about obligation. You obligate the INTP. So all too often, you have women, for example, with INTP males. It's also the same with men who are with INTP females, trying to motivate them. Hey, what do you want? They're constantly asking them, hey, what do you want? And guess what? Anti-critic doesn't want to hear that. They don't care about what they want. It's not a priority to them. They want to hear what you want. But then again, if the male is constantly saying, well, I want to hear what you want, then the female in the relationship's like, oh, you're just a weak man because you never know what you want. And because of that, I can't really respect you. So therefore, we can't be in a relationship anymore. And then it's like, wow, okay. And yeah, ENTJs often have that reputation of being one of the more selfish of all the types, right? So I guess it would kind of make sense, that INTPs who are some of the more selfless, and I'm not saying selfless, I mean selfless, as in there's some serious deprecation issues going here with that FI demon, if you know what I'm saying, because they just don't care about what they value. They don't care about how they feel about anything. And that lack of feeling, that lack of self-worth, that lack of knowing how to value themselves properly is one of the hugest, biggest banes of their existence. Also mine, technically. I also have a similar struggle because I have FI trickster. You think that's actually really going to be super helpful to me? No. So I need someone else to actually value me, and then I utilize how they value me based on my internal value structure so that I can improve as well. It's no different for INTPs. They have a similar approach to ENTPs like myself, right? So, how? Well, first things first, you try to obligate them, because going and asking and telling the INTP what they want or asking them what they want is never going to motivate them to do anything. To the point where they'll never commit in their relationship. Imagine an INTP woman, right, or an INTP man who's like been with a woman for like 5 or 6, 7 years and never even proposes to her. He should have by now. You see what I'm saying? He probably should have figured that out, right? Probably should have. So, how do you fix that? Enter the ENTJ. The ENTJ knows what to do. Because if obligating the INTP isn't going to work, and obviously we know that telling them what they want to do or trying to motivate them is not going to work, how to do it? The ENTJ is not afraid of making it about them. If you want to motivate an INTP, you tell them, hey, your behavior, your XYZ behavior is basically causing other people harm. Or it's causing me harm, the ENTJ tells the INTP in this golden pair relationship. Hey, you are harming me because of your behavior, because of your stagnation, because you're not doing anything, because you're not growing, and I'm losing respect for you, INTP males, for example. Because of this, I don't really want to be in a relationship with you in that way because you're doing these things. The ENTJ is not afraid about making it about how they feel, making it about them. It comes off selfish to a lot of the other types, but it's exactly everything the INTP needs to hear. It's everything they need to hear. Because then it's like, oh, FB inferior, ESFJ subconscious. Yeah, that ESFJ subconscious, that's definitely a problem, right? Because ESFJ subconscious, if it's not being, what it's supposed to do, supportive, guess what? The INTP is going to take it very personally. They're going to take it very personally. Oh, wow, I'm a bad person right now. Oh, wow, I'm really failing. Oh, and then settles in the guilt. I am failing her. I am not doing a good enough job. I am actually harming her. My behavior is going to harm her. I can't allow that to happen. And then SI child duty activates, and then they become this amazing ESFJ, knight in shining armor, and then they finally get off their rears and do something with their life. For once, instead of playing World of Warcraft all of the time. They might actually read a book. Because the ENTJ is not afraid when they're aspiring with FI inferior to actually hold them accountable in that way and make it about them. Comes off selfish to everybody else, but it's exactly everything that the INTP needs in order for their own personal growth. Even further than that, the INTP is not afraid to potentially inject themselves within the inner workings of what the ENTJ is doing, especially in business. And then as a result of that, the ENTJ gets the benefits of their thoughts and their psyche and their brilliance within their business on how to conduct business better and more efficiently and more effectively, right? Very, very important. Very, very very key. It's because of that FE inferior caring, because they really care, they really want to be supportive to the ENTJ and be able to provide support and cast vision for the ENTJ so the ENTJ can stay focused on execution, right? And then the INTP can become a workhorse for the sake of the ENTJ so that the ENTJ can actually complete more tasks and get things done. Amazing! Oh, and that also increases emotional compatibility. Because guess what? They're leveraging their emotional compatibility for success in business, and success in the bedroom, and success in parenting, and success in health, and success in wealth, and all the things. You see what I'm saying? That's literally how this relationship works, ladies and gentlemen. That's why it is so important. That's why it needs to be protected. That's why it needs to be supportive. Imagine what can happen when you have a Fortune 500 ENTJ CEO who just happens to be with the most brilliant engineer of like a rival company, and then they come together. Imagine what they'll be able to do, right? They can literally change the world. Imagine the technologies or the business opportunities or the prospects or the jobs or the anythings that would come as a result of such a powerful, loving sexual relationship. Awesome between these people within this golden pair, the third golden pair. Definitely something I support. Definitely something that needs to be sought after, because guess what? Both these types cover each other's bases, right? And it's no different even further, because guess what? Their worry exists with their nemesis function. And the ENTJ is worried about what they think and worried that they're stupid. And guess what? The INTP is also worried that these other people in their life might not be that intelligent. So the INTP again goes to the ENTJ and it's like, hey, I notice you're having an issue here. I want to help you solve this problem. And the ENTJ is like, oh, thank God I don't have to think about this because they're obviously already thinking about it. Yes, please help me. And then it's fixed and then it works and then no one has to worry about it anymore. That's the difference, right? That is the difference. That's what they're trying to go for. And then extrovert intuition critic. ENTJs have this problem. They really, really have this problem of assuming that other people are going to betray them. But when it comes to INTPs, guess what? INTPs don't betray anyone because then once they get stuck in their obsession with their ENTJ and they're so super loyal to ENTJ with SI child and the ENTJ is consistently committed to giving them a good experience, that INTP ain't going anywhere. And based on that, the ENTJ can feel secure knowing that that INTP is so diehard loyal to them that they're not going to be able to leave, that they don't want to leave because they just want to stay and receive the experience that the ENTJ is giving them, and it's creating loyalty because it's literally etching upon their soul, right? Literally etching upon their soul in such a way, right, where the INTP permanently remembers every single good thing the ENTJ has ever done with them, so that when the ENTJ eventually screws up, and they will, mark my words, the INTP will be like, oh, this is all the bad things that they've ever done to me, but here's all the good things they've ever done to me. Just a few little bad things and a mountain of good things. Oh yeah, not an issue. I'll forgive them. It's really bad, though, in relationships when those bad things pile up and those good things, become stale, and then all of a sudden they level like this. And then when this happens, when there's more bad things than good things done, guess what? The INTP becomes disloyal, and they realize they can no longer be loyal to that person. But even then, they're still at risk of getting stuck in a rut, because if they don't have that TE input in their life to help augment them in the direction they're supposed to go, good luck. It's still, the feminist society still rules, and the feminist society still gets in the way. And I feel really bad for INTPs who have that issue. Oh, duality is a lie. Why are you guys insisting on living in duality? Duality is a lie. Don't do it. This is the truth. The real golden pairs. The truth. And guess what? The truth will set you free. You want to have someone who's reliable. You want to have someone who's effective, willing to optimize you, make you more efficient. To make you the best you? Is that what you really want? Well, you can have it. You just have to get over your stupid human nurture bullshit and actually realize that these people are amazing. Because guess what? Anything can be fixed. Anything can be fixed. That's the point. And guess what? When it comes to NTJs and NTPs, it can happen. Those NTPs can be molded. And as a result of being molded and fitting the particular mold that they need to fit for the sake of the NTJ, they will grow. And then guess what? They'll even expand like a tree out even further from that fixed point in space-time, that point with which the extroverted sensing of the NTJ determines the position in space-time that the introverted sensing needs to sit. That's how it works. Great. And then the trickster functions. SI trickster, ENTJ is super mega forgetful. INTP remembers literally everything, but is not aware of the experience the ENTJ has. Well, the ENTJ is not aware of their own experience, so it doesn't matter. It is not a priority. Good. Because guess what? The INTP remembers everything. If you want to see a movie devoted to this golden pair, watch A Beautiful Mind with Russell Crowe. That was an INTP with an ENTJ wife. I remember this amazing scene in this film. It was an exquisite scene where they're in an art gallery and she's talking to him and he's just looking at the art and whatnot, and she's like, wow, he's not even listening to me. And then like a month later, he recites to her every single thing she ever said. Because that's how NTPs work. That's how INTPs work, because they have their SI child. SI child right here. Pretty awesome. It remembers everything. That way, the ENTJ creates within the INTP a totem to remember and remind them of everything. And they store all of their long-term memories within the INTP, and the INTP can remember them. That's why when relationships go south with ENTJs, they have to cut people out of their life, because they are literally walking reminders of all the good times and the bad times they ever had with that person. Wow. This is why NJs cut people out of their lives, because they're so totemic. They're very totem-based, something INTPs don't really have to deal with. The problem is with being an NTP or an SI user is that we carry our pain with us everywhere we go every single day. And we can't just forget so easily. You can't just take the totems out of our lives and we don't forget. We remember everything to the day we die. That's the problem. Sometimes I wish I was an SE user because then I could just forget. But I can't. And I sure as hell know that it's even worse for INTPs because they have SI child that's double the awareness I have in the introverted sensing realm. I am so sorry. Sometimes it's no wonder they get stuck in their rut because they remember all the bad things that have ever happened to them. And if there's a lot more bad that's happened to them than good, it's really hard. Thank God for SE child with the ENTJ because SE child could just rip that part out and slowly heal them over time. INTPs need that healing, and then as a result of that, the ENTJ can have healing as well because they're healing the INTP. Demon functions. ENTJs are completely unaware of how INTPs feel, or anyone for that matter, and guess what? INTPs don't care about how they feel, so it works out just fine. The INTP is all about what's true or false anyway. That's the point. That's what they care about. The ENTJ, they just don't care. They care about how they feel, and that's fine because the INTP cares about how they feel. What an amazing relationship, and yet our society continues to work day in and day out to shit on both of these types and prevent them from ever reaching happiness. I am so tired of it. I am so tired of it. People need to wake up. I'm so tired of it. These people could be happy and the world could be changing for the better if we would just get over our stupid societal bullshit and recognize that NT relationships, especially with golden pairs, it's anything goes. The rules, the gender roles, the rules, the approaches, everything that happens within that relationship is defined by those within the relationship and not any other external source whatsoever. Absolutely not. And as Gellert Grindelwald would say, for the greater good, it is important that we as a society do our best to make sure that we change that for the sake of this golden pair. Because let me tell you something, this golden pair is able to move mountains such that the quality of life for everyone on this earth could be for the better. If we would just seek to allow them to be who they are instead of judging them and trying to hold them up to these bullshit societal standards that don't actually mean anything. That would be nice. But apparently we can't do that because of our stupid human social constructs and in our arrogance expect everyone else to adhere to them. Oh my gosh, if only Jesus Christ could come back to earth right now to die on a cross a second time, it'd be great to see craters everywhere where churches stand these days while he's walking up the place of the skull to go be nailed on a cross a second time. I'd really like to sit down and eat some popcorn and see all these smoldering craters where churches stand. Be like a really nice, it's like a 2.0 to that scene where he's got the whip beating people at the temple, but I mean, come on, come back and summon a firestorm and see what happens. Boom. See what I'm saying, folks? It's very important that we are here for these types and these relationships. And for any of the golden pairs, quite frankly, but this one is especially important because these two types rarely find each other. Because they're so caught up in the societal feminist crap that they can't even get past that sometimes. And then the INTP gets stuck in their rut, and the ENTJ gets stuck in societal norms, societal expectations, to the point where, their thinking is based on what society thinks and not actually the truth. That's the problem. That's what inhibits these people from ever reaching happiness. And that's why I'm here telling you this today, that this needs to end. If we're going to have a better future and a better tomorrow for all of us, we need to make sure that this is a problem that we get fixed as soon as possible. Yeah, I think I got most of it. One other thing about ENTJs with their ISFP subconscious, the INTP goes out of their way to support their autistic capabilities. ENTJs eventually become super amazing artists, especially in midlife, and based on how supportive the INTP is, that art ends up becoming way more developed because of how supportive they are. And they're always giving positive feedback, as well as thinking their way through things and helping the ENTJ solidify their process, their artistic process, they're mastering their artistic process, such that they're able to create beautiful, amazing art, which further increases the way of life of the earth and quality of life as human beings. Why wouldn't we want that? Why wouldn't we want that as a race, as a species? Why wouldn't we want that? Super mega important. Anyway, that's it for this lecture.